Jeffrey Epstein, who was deeply interested in all these same technologies. This is a whole other side of him that no one talks about, is his interest in technologists and geneticists and all those things, right?
Yeah, well, he had a lot of influence over scientists. That's a creepy move to like take scientists and
throw
bring
parties for them, throw conventions for them. And a couple of them, a couple of them had some serious accusations, like Marvin Minsky, for example. But I bet a lot of them were not compromised. Like Stephen Hawking, everyone freaked out when Stephen Hawking was on the list. But it makes perfect sense as you realize that he was throwing conventions on that island for scientists specifically to bring them all together, because that way you get connections, you can get favors, even if you're not blackmailing them. Then they just want to be on your good side because you have all these connections and you can fund all their projects, and you become this integral part of this technological sort of space. That's
Blackmail's not the only tool. That's a blunt instrument. There's a lot of just connections.
He also just hooked people up with wives. Like, do you know that he claimed that he introduced Melania to Trump? Yeah, that's a crazy one. I suspect, Melania conspiracy time, I suspect that Melania has been whispering in Trump's ear. I think she was trafficked before, either bad trafficked or good, or just like knew Epstein and like knew that world a little bit. But I suspect that she's been whispering in his ear about what that really is and does and all that things, because she's been kind of like acting from the back a lot. But when you really dig into what Melania's been doing, she's very active in anti-trafficking and in protecting trafficked victims and girls and stuff. And as Trump, when he married her, and then they have Barron, and he's watching his son grow up. So you have this young child, and you have this wife telling you about her previous life, probably, and just whispering in your ear that like, this could be your legacy. This could be your legacy. This could be your legacy, right? Because he used to be friends with those people, even though I don't think he was blackmailed, because I think that would have come out when the Democrats were going for him.
Right.
And maybe he was involved in the trafficking a little bit because of the things that he bought and the people that he knew, and like Roy Cohn connections. But I don't even know about that. But regardless, he knows the game. And then he marries Melania. And then more and more, like, he was in charge when Epstein went down. He was the only one that when Epstein got arrested and they were going around asking for dirt, he was like, I'll fully cooperate with that guy. I'll tell you everything that I know. And so I suspect that Melania has been instrumental in his sort of shift to being the only guy willing to go after those traffickers.
Out of all the information that's getting disclosed, supposedly this administration, what do you have the least faith that we're going to come to
Epstein,
a conclusion?
for sure.
Epstein.
And I think it's because of Israel. I think when you really dig into Epstein, his entire network was Israel. It was clearly. Like Ehud Barak was the ex-prime minister and the ex-head of Israeli intelligence. Leslie Wexner was one of the most powerful pro-Israeli philanthropists. The whole organization was Israel. And I'm not saying it was all of Israel.
It was all an intelligence gathering and
it was targeting Americans. It was targeting American officials and the American president.
Right.
And the CIA does have interest in those targets too. Elements in the CIA does. Certainly they had help from the CIA, and certainly they had help from these other organized crime and intelligence operations. But you don't, like, so for example, Dan Bongino, the new, deputy director of the FBI, he recently had this clip that went all around where he said on camera that he had a source that he trusted deeply. And he's an informed guy. He was at a Fox News interview, and the source told him that Epstein was working for an intelligence agency in the Middle East. And I don't know which one, but someone in the Middle East. And to be fair, we all already knew this. We already know who he worked for. At least I think so. But I'm looking at, okay, Dan, so if this giant group of Jewish billionaires is running a sex trafficking operation targeting American politicians and business people and stuff, you think they're working with an Arab or Muslim nation in the Middle East? Like, you think that Leslie Wexner is devoting his entire life to philanthropies on behalf of Israel, but then he's going to work for Saudi Arabia when he's doing this trafficking ring?
Right. But if someone says to him that they're all working for a country in the Middle East, knowing he knows what that means, but not specifying, doesn't he kind of have to repeat it that same way?
Well, he also has to repeat it the same way because he won't get the job if he says Israel. Exactly. Because Israel has so much control over our government right now. And I'm not saying that all Jews are in on something. Clearly, internet. Thank you. Internet. And Joe is definitely not saying that.
Definitely not.
But Israel's government is every bit as vulnerable to the deep state effect as the American government. But I would argue that Israel's government is way more vulnerable to it because of the people that founded Israel and the way it was founded. It was founded in a modern time, much more recently, by, like, it was a revolutionary founding. And I can totally sympathize with the Jewish desire to have that state. Like, I get it. But because of the way that happened, the people that founded Israel were a bunch of organized crime figures in America, the Jewish mob, that were helping with money and with arms trafficking to get the guns there because they had to have guns. And it was the Rothschild banking family sending a whole bunch of money and getting the declaration in the first place. And then the people that were there, the 3 different organizations, the Irgun, the Lehi group, and the Haganah, those were the 3 like paramilitary groups that fought to found Israel, and they're like the heroes of Israel, which I understand the narrative that they're heroes, but when Israel was officially founded, they officially designated Irgun and Lehi as terrorist organizations because they had been bombing civilians. They'd been bombing British civilians. The first official act of terror before they changed the definition was the bombing of the King David Hotel, where these terrorists, these Lehi and Irgun terrorists, a bunch of different groups, the guy who planned that bombing later became the prime minister of Israel. They were bombing civilians. And like, so when those are the groups that are fighting to found that nation, even if all the Jews there are wonderful people, the leadership is inherently composed of these people that have been deeply corrupt for all time. And so you get this fertile ground for this kind of deep state effect to take power. And when you start to research the heads of state of Israel over history, you realize that a bunch of them were in those groups doing those terrorist acts and have done a bunch of dark stuff because those were the people that were at the top of that military organization. Like those terrorist organizations reformed to form the IDF.
And what's interesting is
party.
You can talk about this now,
Exactly.
post-October 7th.
It opened it wide open.
Post-Gaza.
Over the years, he successfully built multiple businesses in Hong Kong. His first major venture was the candle company, now known as Carroll and Chan, which specializes in natural beeswax candles. What's unique about these candles? Unlike traditional candles, beeswax burns cleaner, brighter, and longer. This might seem like a simple business, but in reality, it reflects Ian's philosophy: quality, sustainability, and attention to detail. But that wasn't enough for Ian. He expanded his expertise into the wine retail industry, acquiring a small grocery store and turning it into Soho Wines and Spirits, one of Hong Kong's well-known wine businesses. Now, that's what we call vision. He saw an opportunity, adapted to the local culture, and built a thriving business that caters to wine lovers across the region. Behind every successful man is a strong support system. For Ian, that's his wife Liana and their 2 adopted children from Hong Kong. Unlike many high-profile entrepreneurs, Ian values family time and ensures that his work-life balance remains intact. He's not just about the hustle, he's about creating a fulfilling life. And here's a fun fact. When Ian isn't busy running businesses or discussing deep conspiracy theories, he's indulging in his love for science fiction. He's read hundreds of sci-fi books and even used to carry one in his coat pocket at all times. Any sci-fi fans here? Let us know in the comments. He often draws inspiration from sci-fi literature, seeing it as a glimpse into what the future might hold and how technology and society evolve. Now let's talk about what really put Ian Carroll on the radar for Joe Rogan fans.